Here we have a 2016 Nissan Murano, and we're going to swap over the factory halogen headlight bulbs over to our Enlight Alpha Series Xenon HID system. Let's take a look at the kit that's going to come from Enlight. It's going to come with two of the Alpha Series 35 watt HID ballasts, the second generation ARC Series HID bulbs. This is a 6000K kit in a pure white color. It'll come with the Alpha Series relay harness. It's a very nice relay harness. It's got a weatherproof relay pack. The relay unit itself is a Hella brand, which is a OEM quality brand. All of the wires are thick. It's made from 14 gauge and 16 gauge power wires. It's got a waterproof fuse holder, silicone water seals on all the connectors. Very nice. It will also come with some zip ties, mounting bolts, and stainless steel brackets for the ballasts. To begin the installation, pull the hood latch inside the vehicle, and then just to the right side of the Nissan logo, there is a lever that you're going to push over towards the center of the vehicle, and then lift up. So open the hood, and the installation will begin from here. So we're going to start on the driver's side of the vehicle here. This is the headlight bulb on the driver's side. First, we're going to start off by removing this connector here. So where my finger is going to push forward on a tab that is there towards the front of the vehicle, and then push down on the connector itself. You might have to wiggle it. Usually they're a bit stiff, but you should be able to slide it off. Then grab the bulb, rotate it counterclockwise like you're loosening a bolt. Slide it out. Same process on the passenger side of the vehicle. Push the tab forward towards the front of the vehicle, and then slide the connector down towards the ground, and then remove the bulb by turning it counterclockwise. Now that we have removed the factory bulbs, we're just going to put the Xenon HID bulbs in. So go ahead and take off the protective cover. We'll start over here on the driver's side. Now carefully align the bulb with the socket, and then there's 3 tabs that you've got to line up. So get the bulb to slide in, turn it clockwise to lock it in place, and that's it. And do the exact same thing for the passenger side. And just a quick note, make sure that you do not touch the glass with your fingers or anything else. If you get any type of dirt or residue on the glass, use isopropyl alcohol and a cotton cloth to clean off all faces of the bulb. The next step is to prepare the HID ballasts. Now what we're going to do is mount these brackets to the ballast using the provided bolts. So I will mount both the brackets on the ballast and show you what it looks like when it's done. Here you can see I've got the brackets mounted. These 2 top holes will come pre-tapped, so you can use the provided M6 bolts and a 10mm socket or wrench to tighten the bracket and secure it to the ballasts. Do that for both sides. Now the next step is to mount the ballast on the driver's side of the vehicle. There are a couple of options on the Murano here. You don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it, but this is just the way that I would recommend doing it. I am going to remove this bolt here with a 13mm socket, and then bend this bracket here. You can use the pliers, or you can do it with your hands too. Right at the base here where it changes angles. I'm going to bend it about 90 degrees, and hopefully you can see that there's a space here, and I'm going to slip the ballast right down into the space and then tighten the bolt back on through this hole here. I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. So let's make this connection now. So grab these connectors here, which are from the HID bulb, and then connect them into the high voltage output of the HID ballast. This is what it should look like when it's done. Make sure that you get the tab to lock over this little notch that's in the center there. Now passenger side, same thing. We're going to loosen this bolt with the 13mm socket. Take this guy out, and again, bend this bracket 90 degrees, and this guy's just going to sit right in here, very similar to the driver's side here. You should be able to get it tucked in between the AC line and the core support, and then put the bolt back in and tighten it up. Same thing as we did before, grab the cables coming off the back of the HID bulbs and then plug them into the high voltage cables coming off the HID ballast. And then do make sure that when you mount this ballast here on the passenger side that you route the cables coming off it over to the left side of the windshield wiper reservoir. Okay, now on to the relay harness. Now, why do we use a relay harness on these vehicles? There are a lot of kits out there that you can buy that will just come with bulbs and ballast. You can plug them in and you'll get light out. But the Enlight kits always use the Alpha Series relay harness wherever applicable. Now, the relay harness essentially allows the HID system to operate independent of the vehicle's factory electronic system, with the exception of just drawing a small, low-power signal from the headlight plug to turn on the relay. Now, one of the key reasons why we need the relay harness is to provide ample power supply to the ballast during the startup process. The startup process of the ballast can draw up to about 80 watts, especially on a cold day, even though the steady state operating power is 35 watts. And that's to the bulb, so it's 35 watts to the bulb and about 38 watts into the ballast. Now, that the factory electronic system can probably handle because the factory bulbs are 55 watt, but it's the startup sequence, especially on cold days, is why we really want to use the relay harness. So now let's look at all the connections in the relay harness and install it in the vehicle. Now let's start with these two cables here. The cable that has this red fuse holder on it, this is the primary power input to the relay harness and the entire HID system. It's got a nice 14 gauge power wire. And this guy right here, this is the primary ground cable. Now, the red one will connect to the positive terminal of the battery, and also the black one will connect to the negative terminal of the battery. So I'm going to put these two connections on and we'll start from there. So I'll show you a trick that I use to connect these terminals to the battery terminal. And I actually cut out the center section of the ring terminal and turn it into a U terminal using a cutting tool like this. It's pretty easy just to clip out the center. And the reason why I do that is I don't like to break electrical connectivity from the battery terminals to the rest of the vehicle's electronic system. All these newer vehicles, they have all kinds of computers in the windows and the seats and the radio and things like that. And if you actually break the battery connection, it will reset a lot of computers, and sometimes you need codes and whatnot. So I don't like to do that. And all I do here is I just loosen the nut. I don't take the nut all the way off, and you can do that with a 10mm socket. And all you have to do now is just slide the terminal underneath the nut and then carefully tighten the nut and make sure that you don't get the wire binding against the battery. But tighten the nut, secure it down, and now you don't have to break the connection. Here you can see, hopefully, that I've mounted the red cable to the positive terminal of the battery. And again, all I did is I turned the ring terminal into a U terminal, loosened the nut just enough to slide it under, and then tighten it back down, again making sure that you don't get the wire binding against the battery and snapping off. So, and the reason why I mounted on this side is it's easier to close this cap once you've got it mounted. And I've also taken the relay here and positioned it in this region here, because eventually what we'll do is we'll take out this nut where my finger is, bend the bracket, and then mount the relay in this region here. For all of the cables that are coming out of the bottom of the relay pack, I've fed them down in this region here. That's also where the negative terminal from the relay pack comes from. And you've got this connector here, which is the input power to the ballast. You've also got the relay trigger, which will connect to the factory headlight plug. And then there's also a really long cable, which will be fed over to the passenger side. But for now, let's make these two connections here. Let's start with this guy here. This is the input to the relay. What this does is it takes a signal from the factory headlight plug, which we took off the factory bulb, which is here, and sends it to the relay pack to turn it on. So make sure that you connect this one with this guy here. Here's what it looks like when it's done. On this particular vehicle, it does not matter which way you put these connectors in. It will fit both right side up and upside down. The relay is not sensitive to polarity. It'll work both ways. So now find the input connector to the HID ballast, which is here on the right side, and then plug in this cable, and just make sure that you get the red wire lining up with the plus and the black wire lining up with the minus. Next, we'll take the long cable that comes from the relay pack and stretch it over to the passenger side of the vehicle. Now, the way that I'm going to route this is by removing these plastic clips here. There are 4 plastic clips, and we'll just lift up this radiator airflow cover and route the cable underneath this. Now, to remove these plastic clips, all you need is a flathead screwdriver, and insert the head in between the top part and the bottom part of the clip, and then just gently begin to pry up and work it in until you hear it pop out like that. And usually you can take your fingers and pop the clip out. So do that for all 4 clips. So now take the long cable from the relay harness and just tuck it underneath this airflow cover here. Make sure it doesn't interfere with the hood latch mechanism. We'll secure it with zip ties later. Get it all the way underneath and then bring it over to the passenger side. Now what you want to do is take this connector that we just brought over the passenger side and then plug it into the input connector of the HID ballasts, just like we did on the driver's side. Make sure you line up the plus and minus with the red and black wires on the connector. And next, let's put this ground in. Now, luckily for us, there is a factory ground location on the valve cover here. If we can see where my finger is. And what we're going to do is just loosen that up with a 10mm wrench, and you can flex the plastic back too if you need more clearance. So remove this bolt here, and then we'll slide the ring terminal onto the bolt and then tighten it back down. And if you want to, you can turn this into a U-terminal just like we did with the battery connections. Here you can see that I've got the ground cable connected to the factory ground location here. You do want to make sure that none of the cables or none of the wires are moving around or will interfere with any moving components. At this point, we have all of the connections necessary made. Let's go test the HID system. Even though it's bright and sunny outside, you can see that we've got both headlights working here. Looks very nice. You get a nice crystal white 6000K light. Now, to finish the installation, what we want to do is secure all of the wires with the provided zip ties, and also mount the relay pack. Now, there are 2 ways you can mount the relay pack. Initially I said that we would use this bolt that's behind here and then bend the bracket, but another way that you can do this is just take a zip tie, thread it through the brackets here and mount it to the factory harness that's there. You do have to make sure that this is vertical. Now you just want to go through all the components and make sure that they're mounted and secured properly. Here you can see I've put a couple of zip ties securing these connectors for the HID bulb and also the igniter module here. I've secured to this thick factory cable. And also the cable that runs across the front of the vehicle. I've secured it with a zip tie to the factory hood latch cable. Hopefully you can see that there. Runs underneath. I've put another zip tie here, which is the overflow hose, I believe, and a couple more zip ties. I mounted the igniter to this piece here, another zip tie, and also I think I'll put another one here just to make sure that this ground wire isn't flopping around. So once you get everything tightened together, that's it. You can close the hood and enjoy your new lights. If you'd like to purchase this kit, go to www.enlightauto.com, go to the Select Your Vehicle section, and find the 2015 and 2016 Nissan Murano.